So, the benefits of open education in today's educational landscape. I think one of the most important benefits is obvious, the fact that resources are freely available regardless of the amount of resource you have to pay for things, helping to level up the imbalance, particularly global imbalance, in both education provision and the contribution to knowledge and to research. And I think the very presence of the open education landscape encourages educators to think about things like sharing, licensing, reuse, and appropriate use of others' work and giving credit where appropriate. There's also the advantage that the open education publishing processes can be a lot shorter than the traditional peer review processes, which is anonymous and can take a long time. In the open model, peer review can be carried out openly, feedback given by anyone, not just chosen reviewers, and it can happen quite quickly. There's also an advantage to learners in that they can interact with a much wider range of materials rather than having to invest in one or two textbooks and only getting the perspectives from those one or two textbooks. They can see a much wider set of perspectives from a lot of freely available resources, which gives them a more rounded approach to the topic that they're studying. I also think that open software can really help the education sector because people can trial things. People can use the free software or freemium versions of something to see if it works, see if it meets their needs before they then invest more time and money into a more highly featured version or a paid-for product. For example, I've worked with libraries in academic libraries in low-income countries who have created online catalogues for their libraries for the first time and who have created open repositories of their university's research, their PhD theses, things like this, bringing them to a wider audience for the very first time and helping slowly to redress that imbalance of the vast majority of research works on the internet being from the global north or higher income countries. I think OERs can also help with representation of other groups that are traditionally minimized in texts from the more higher income countries. You can get a wider range of perspectives and bring a lot of local and cultural knowledge to a more global audience. And OERs can also help upskill educators so that they're more adept at adapting materials and building on them. And this not only could create savings for institutions because people aren't having to always create things from scratch, but it can also help bring about a more rapid updating of materials. If educators get into the habit of tweaking and updating and looking for resources that they can use more regularly, it helps things stay fresh for the learners and stay current. I also feel like the open education community is more willing to share works in progress for feedback. So development could potentially be quicker rather than having to send things off to particular individuals and sign non-disclosure agreements and all these processes that take a long time. If somebody's willing to share something publicly and get feedback on it that way, it can be a much, much quicker process. And one thing that I think we need to add, which it's harder to state, it's less tangible, but there is a social benefit simply to the existence of open practice and open educational resources and that whole approach to openness, because educators know, thanks to the internet and thanks to the prevalence of open education, they know that they can share and support one another globally and join networks of educators around the world to improve standards in whichever subject they're in. And there's a sense that we're all moving education forward together as a part of the open education movement. And it's very hard to quantify, it's not tangible, but I think it's a very important benefit of open education. So yeah, those would be my benefits of open education in today's educational landscape.